from Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth Congregation. It's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Re'eh, the mitzvah of Tzadakah. If you look in the Rambam, you ask yourself a question: what is the mitzvah of Tzadakah? How is it formulated? How is it defined? The Rambam says, it says it all over the place. It says many times in the Torah that we should give tzedakah. Where's that? Well, he quotes our parsha. Patoach tiftach et yadcha. You should surely open your hands to the poor. He perhaps alludes to the end of that verse. V'havei tavidenu. You should also give him dei machzoro. Give him what he needs. He also mentions a pasuk in the end of Vayikra. V'chazakta bo. You should strengthen him. Speaks there of the ger and the toshav. Speaks of the convert and the strangers. Also another verse that you should support your brother, should live with you. You should help your brother, that he should live with you. It's a mitzvah la'achyoso. It's a mitzvah to help him live. Now, although the Rambam in the book of Mitzvot says that it's inyanim milos mischalfos, these are interchangeable words, and he says that all these verses are kavana beilo lashonos kulam achas. It's really one notion, shnazor inyano v'nachazikim deisibukam, that we should help them and we should strengthen them according to their needs. Although the Rambam claims that there's a certain commonality, one could break down these obligations in various ways. Number one, there's the idea of simply opening your hands, that a person should have an open hand. There's a second idea, that a person should see to it that the fellow is actually supported. In other words, there's one aspect that's important for the giver, that he have an open hand. And then there's important for the receiver, that he actually be supported through this. Not just that I was yotzei, I fulfilled some mitzvah of supporting him, but he actually is supported through this. The Rambam, in its completely different type of chapter, 3 chapters later, in the Hilchot Matzinot Ariyim, not in chapter 7, but chapter 10, there he says that it's because of a different verse in our parsha, a surprising verse. He says that we're all brothers and sisters. How do we know we're brothers and sisters? So maybe you'd think, it says many times in the Torah, is your brother, achicha? No. He says, Shenemar bani matem Hashem lokechem. He says, after all, it says that we are children of God. If we're children of God, we must all be brothers. We must all be sisters. So interesting, there's this other idea of what is my relationship with the other, such that I need to help them not because of I want to be a better person, not because he needs support, but because I'm a brother. Now, there is another possibility, which the Rambam does not mention. Some commentators are perplexed by that. It says that it's elsewhere. It says naton titen lo. It's a different context, talking about the sabbatical year, the Shemitah, but it says naton titen, you shall surely give. And notice that the mitzvah is not formulated that way. The main thing is to have an open hand. It's not the giving, it's having the ptichut, the openness of the hand. That's the most important thing. Then the Rambam has 2 different types of chapters. He has a chapter where he defines what you're supposed to do. That's chapter 7 in Matnot Adiyim. And then in chapter 10, he says that we have to be very careful about it. And in this idea of charity as a sign of the Jewish people, we're children of Abraham. He says that anybody who's not merciful, who's cruel, you have to wonder if he's really Jewish. He says any Jew or anyone who converts to Judaism are like brothers. And it's not possible that we will not be merciful one to another. This idea is not just a midrashic idea, a nice idea, but it's actually codified in the code of Jewish law that mi she'ein lo yesh lo azus panim, someone who's brazen, has achzarius, is cruel, sones abrios, he has hatred toward humanity. Einu gol me'alam chesed, he's not a person of kindness, doesn't do acts of kindness. Choshen lo b'yoseh Hashem lo givonihu. Maybe he came to Judaism in a false way, as the Gibeonites did in the days of Joshua. Maybe he's a descendant of those people who really didn't want to really join the Jewish people. They joined out of fear. And the Gemara says, as it's quoted in the Beis Shmuel, there are 3 signs of a Jewish person: Baishanim, Rachmonim, and Goldim Chasadim. We are either very shy, timid, we are merciful, or we give kindness. If you don't find one of these traits, it's not a good boy to marry, it's not a good girl to marry, find someone else. There's something wrong, fundamentally wrong with that person. This notion of that we're just not those kind of people. It's mentioned also in the laws of avadim, slavery. Yes, the Torah didn't cancel slavery. It wasn't 1862 yet, but the Torah cuts down slavery tremendously. And the Rambam writes at the end of the laws of slavery of avadim that all the rabbis they would treat. They would always share something from every dish that they had, every dessert they had, every stew, every steak. They had to give something to the slave. He says it's even the Canaanites who were supposed to enslave were not supposed to be cruel. Enslavement is one thing, cruelty is another. He says that he says no, that there's no cruelty on the children of Abraham. He says God gave us good righteous laws to be merciful to everyone, and we need to be merciful like God. If you're merciful, God will be merciful to you as well. So this idea, it's not only a mitzvah like all other mitzvahs, but it's also about the state of the human being, that he should have an open hand. And it's not only about the state of the human being, it's about our very status as a Jew. As a Jew, I must be a person of an open hand. I must be a person of kindness. This mitzvah requires not only an action, not only a state of mind, but an entire persona. It's different from other kinds of mitzvahs. There's a story of Isser Zalman Meltzer. It's a great Rosh Yeshiva in the early 20th century. And they say whenever he heard a knock on the door, he would run to the door. He didn't want anyone else to get that door. He was going to get that door. Because maybe it was a poor person. They tell a story of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik that he'd wake up in the middle of the night. He did not hear the door knock, but he thought maybe someone left an orphan baby at the door. He has to go check. It could be that someone is there. And he needed to go check. So they asked Isser Zalman Meltzer, well, why are you running so fast? He says, you don't understand. That's the way God set up the world. Lo yechdal avyon mikerav haaretz. They'll never cease to be poor people. That's the way the world is. We need to have those who are more weak so that those who are stronger can help them. But they're just playing that role. I'm not any smarter than they are. I'm not any more clever. That's just my role is to answer the door. Their role is to be on the other side of the door. It could have been the other way around. So how dare I, as the one who got lucky to be on this side, make them wait one split second more on their side of the door? I've got to help them out. V'chei achicha imach. The Rambam in his laws defines it simply as you have to give to the poor of Israel, and you help to support the non-Jewish poor as well, along with them. But in the book of Mitzvos, 195, the Rambam simply writes, it's a mitzvah lachazek hachaloshim or laharchiv aleim. It's the mitzvah of tzedakah. You know what it is? It's a mitzvah to help the weak. It's not just that I have to have an open heart. I have to have a certain sensitivity to the weak. Understand that there are those who somehow, some mystical reason, it's been determined that in this life, their role will be to be on the receiving end. They're somehow weaker in this world. I have to feel that brotherhood. And even if I don't feel a brotherhood, even if it's not even my brother, if he's weak, I have to understand my responsibility to the weak. And furthermore, I have to understand who I am. I'm a child of Abraham, children of Abraham. Don't turn anyone away. In the contrary, they run. They run not only to answer the door, to check if someone is at the door, to run to find someone to come into the door. That's a child of Abraham. That's the mitzvah of tzedakah. It's an ominous responsibility not only to give others to their needs, but also to be what it is to be a Jew, to be what it is to be a son of Abraham. It's a different category. This taps in not to Sinai, but to our Abrahamic roots, to Sarah, to understand who we are. It says in last week's Haftorah, Abitul Avraham Avichem. Look at Abraham, your forefather. This mitzvah challenges us to look into the Avraham in our DNA, and it's there. And hopefully we can find it to open our hands, hopefully open our hearts as well. Thanks for joining us here at the Anshe Sfard Beth Lemeth congregation here for our discussion of Parshat Re'eh. Join us each week for the discussion of the Parsha, various holidays, various mitzvot. Thanks to our producer, Jason Lefkowitz. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.